Everybody, Dr. Joe's in the house on this Wednesday evening. Hope all is well. And had a sorry for a couple of minutes late. I was booking an airline ticket, in fact. Hold on a second. Let's see if I can get Instagram on the line. And that way we can get going. And we're good to go. Okay, hope everyone's well. We're going to talk about house hacking today. And yeah, it's going to be a good session. And the reason why I chose this topic was that I think a lot of people, I know for me, when I first got into real estate, the issue was how do I reduce my housing cost so that I can keep on acquiring properties? That was the issue because housing cost is very high. And for most places, let's see, turn this my phone down. There we go. Yeah. And it's very expensive. And if you can't drive your housing costs down, then it's really hard to save money. And so the second house I bought, in fact, in Washington D.C. At that time, the term house hacking wasn't invented. Brandon Turner's, formerly a host at Bigger Pockets, I think he coined up the term house hacking. So I did that, but it wasn't called house hacking. I was just trying to say, how in the world can I reduce my housing cost so that way I can save money? And so the second house I bought is in Washington D.C. And so I bought it specifically because it had a basement, and I figured out I could rent the basement as a separate unit, and it had 3 bedrooms upstairs, and it had. So I know I could live in one of them, and possibly I could rent the other 2 out. I mean, I was single at that time, so it was no big deal to me. So anyway, hopefully you guys can hear me okay. And so I bought the house, rented the basement out as a separate unit, fixed up the bedrooms, rented the other 2 bedrooms out, and I ended up the house was paying me. So I didn't have a mortgage to pay, and so I was able to save a lot of money for my job. So I was working at that time. So every month, the money I would have had to pay for rent or for a mortgage, essentially I was getting that from the tenants who were living in the home. So I was able to save money, and therefore from that I was able to save money and then bought my next house because my housing cost was next to nothing. So it's a fantastic strategy if you can figure it out. And so I thought, let me share, some of the, if you're going to do this, some of the considerations, so that way you do it properly and you don't get burnt and so on. So as usual, we're going to break into 6 parts. And it should be an interesting session. But before I get too far, let me just have a look. So this is the house hacking. Turn your home into a paycheck. So that's the title of it today. And as usual, if you've got some questions, please put in the chat box and we'll get to them in about 20, 25 minutes. Anything to real estate investing, put them in there. And if you want to book a one-on-one with me where we can do a deep dive into any subject pertaining to real estate investing, by all means, book a one-on-one with me. You can go to my website, www.joeasamoah.com, www.joeasamoah.com, and we can do a deep dive. Any topic to real estate investing, you can leverage on my 35 plus years experience doing this thing. I've seen pretty much every scenario you can think of, been through about 5 real estate cycles. So any mistake you can make, I've made it. Any problems you're encountering, I've probably faced it. So there's no point trying to figure it out yourself. Leverage my experience and talent. Anyway, so if you want to do that, go to my website, www.joeasamoah.com. Without further ado, let's get down to business. House hacking, how to turn your house into a paycheck. So, introduction. So essentially, as I said before, unless you can figure out how to reduce your housing costs, it's really, really hard to save money. For most people, it's 30% of your income is going to housing. A lot of people, it's 40, 50%. So with that so much going out, it's hard to save money. And so every month, you just watch a big chunk of your money just vanish into housing expenses. whether it be rent, whether it be mortgages, utilities, taxes, it all adds up. And so my thought is, okay, how can I get my property to pay me? How can it pay me? How can I get this asset to pay me rather than me going out all and so on? And that's where the house hacking strategy comes in. It's a really powerful, and I think it's overlooked strategy. That really turns the largest liability that many people have, which is their rent and housing costs, into an asset. You can slash your cost, can build equity if you own this, and also you can really fast track your experience and build momentum if you want to develop a portfolio. So, in my opinion, house hacking is more than just a clever tactic. It's really a foundational, wealth building move that has launched a lot of people, including myself, on my real estate journey. So what we're going to do today is to do a deep dive. We're going to talk about strategies, stories, mistakes, triumphs that I've made, what other people have made, and hopefully how you can master this technique. So whether you're renting a room out or renting a basement unit or living in a duplex or triplex or 4-unit building, hopefully this will be helpful for you. I'm going to share with you the good, the bad, the ugly of this approach, and also how you can use it to accelerate your financial freedom. In this market, in most places, it's just getting expensive, housing. And so we have to figure a way to reduce that cost down. And I think that for those people who can, we can use house hacking as a strategy to generate income and also fast track our journey to real estate, financial independence, financial freedom. Okay, so that's the background. Let's get down to business. As usual, I said I'm going to break it into 6 parts. So first, as a primer, I'm going to talk about what is house hacking and why should you care. What is house hacking? What am I talking about when I say house hacking? Well, house hacking, the issue, I suppose, the question is, how can one property, your property, whether you're renting or whether you own it, how can that help solve your housing costs and build your real estate empire? At the same time, how can you reduce costs and build your real estate empire? And that's essentially is the bottom line for house hacking. So it's a strategy of using your primary residence, okay, whether it be you own the house or whether you rent the house, to generate rental income. The most common methods include renting an extra bedroom, a basement unit, or a separate unit in a multifamily property that you occupy. So by doing this, your tenants can cover part, if not all, of your mortgage and rent expenses, essentially allowing you to live there for free. In fact, even profit, like what I did in my own home. As I said, my scenario is I was making money renting out my house and living there for free. And so this strategy is really attractive to new investors. And because of the financing benefits, you can get owner occupant financing through programs like FHA, VA, and certain conventional loan programs. And since it's owner occupied, you can get low down payment, and also you can get better interest rates. But the magic really isn't just about saving money. It's about the compounding benefits, I think, anyway. You build equity because now you own an asset, which hopefully is going to increase in value. You're going to gain some landlording experience because you're going to be renting to other people. So you can sort of learn how to be a landlord. You can really learn firsthand how to manage properties without taking on too much excessive risk. So successful house hackers, I kind of describe this experience as almost like a boot camp, real estate boot camp. You kind of learn on the job. You learn about tenant screening, you learn about maintenance, you learn about budgeting, and you learn about how to deal and communicate with tenants. All around the safety of your home. Okay. But on the flip side, there are some pros and cons. If you don't do this right, you can get yourself into a lot of problems. Legal issues, permit issues, zoning issues. If you select the wrong tenant, you can have some, pretty horrible tenant experiences. And there's some zoning laws that you may have to consider as well. So it's not all, easy peasy. There are some, potential issues. And so you want to learn from other people's mistakes. And so you can avoid making costly pitfalls. Also, I think house hacking helps you test your appetite, and also your aptitude for landlording. I mean, you can try it. You may say, there's no way I want to be a landlord. I can't deal with these people. So you kind of, tiptoe and put your foot in the water before you dive in. So I mean, you'll quickly find out, I think, that managing people, solving maintenance problems, and staying on top of expenses, you'll find out if it fits your lifestyle or whether it doesn't. That's what I did. I made some mistakes, but I realized that the benefits far outweighed the cons. So I just went with it. So what are some of the action items that you may want to consider? Use a mortgage calculators to estimate how much rental income you need to break even. Okay, explore FHA, VA financing loans to qualify and see what it's going to take to qualify. Some of them require less than 3.5 or 3.5% down. And I think if you can, try to talk to some experienced house hackers or join a local investor meetup to learn from other people's mistakes. Okay, as the saying goes, a wise man learns from his mistakes, but the genius learns from other people's mistakes. So you want to be a genius, you want to learn from other people who've done this and so on. So let's get to number 2, which is choosing the right property for a house hack. Okay, not all properties make sense. There are certain types of properties that work very well and others just doesn't work. Okay, so the question, I suppose, is what makes a property ideal or disastrous for house hacking? What kind of property makes it work or doesn't work? As I said, not all homes are created equal. When it comes to house hacking, in my opinion, the best properties allow for a clear separation between your living space and your tenants. You don't want to, well, it's up to you. You want kind of minimal interactions. You want privacy between you and them. I'm sure they don't want to share space with you just as much as you don't want to share the space with them. So you don't want, if you can, try to minimize, have separate, living space if you can. And therefore you minimize potential friction and also you maximize privacy. So if your home has a finished basement, for example, or an ADU, accessory dwelling unit, or maybe a small multi-family building with a duplex, triplex, fourplex, the layout really does matter. If you can, look for properties with multiple entrances and separate kitchens or kitchenettes areas, and at least 2 bathrooms, so not everyone's sharing one bathroom. So again, multiple entrances. I know for me, I wanted to have a basement that had 2 entrances, one in the front, one in the back. It had an apartment, and so I made a kitchen down there so they could have their own facilities. They didn't have to go upstairs to where I was living. And the unit downstairs had a bathroom as well. So it was fine for me. The people downstairs had complete privacy. I didn't have to interact with them, and they didn't have to interact with me. So, these features really makes renting easier, and I think more comfortable for everyone involved. Also, you may want to consider the location of your property. Given the type of client base that you're going to rent to, you got to make sure that it's also good for them, i.e., proximity to things like public transportation, universities, if that's the case, or job hubs. You don't want the property, hopefully, to be in the middle of nowhere, so it's hard to get to their jobs. And so if you got something that's close to transportation, college, or job centers, you're going to increase the rentability, and also you can probably increase the amount you can charge for rent. I think some investors make the mistake of choosing properties based solely on their personal preferences, what they like. But successful house hackers, I found, think like investors. We focus on cash flow, potential livability for both parties, and also the property's long-term value. Is it going to increase in value over time? So again, not all properties appreciate. Not all properties, are good investments. So in some cases, it's worth sacrificing certain comforts, like a bigger kitchen or newer finishes, in exchange for better income-producing features. Okay, it's a trade-off there, and so on. So you should consider these. The ease of making upgrades, or that enhance the rentability of your unit. And if you want to, it may make sense to add soundproofing. I didn't do that for my basement unit, but looking back now, I probably should have done that. because I know I could hear the people upstairs or downstairs, and I'm sure they could hear us. So adding soundproofing sometimes is worthwhile. Private entrances, I think, is great, and also a kitchenette, so that way they can use their own kitchen and don't have to interact with you. These seemingly small changes, I think, can drastically boost your rental income and also your tenant satisfaction. Okay, so that's what makes a property ideal. Some action items that you may want to consider. Number one is sort of prioritize with multiple living zones and private entrances. I think that's important. Use rental comps to find out how much you can potentially get from your units, and also budget for upgrades that enhance the rentability. For example, adding a kitchenette and so on. So there may be some expenses that you're going to incur to get the place into a suitable condition. So you're going to need to budget for that. Otherwise, you may not be able to do it. Okay, number three. So part three is financing. Yes, financing your house hack the smart way. Okay, and so the question is, how can you leverage owner-occupied financing to buy with little or no money down? Okay, as I said before, the beauty of house hacking is the fact that you're going to be living there, and therefore you may be able to qualify for owner occupant housing as financing, sorry, as opposed to just investor financing. So one of the most attractive features of house hacking is the access to low down payment financing. You got programs like FHA, which is like 3.5% down, VA, that's 0% down, and some conventional programs, which you can get down as low as 5%, are real game changers because it allows you to get into the property without a whole lot of money out of your pocket, which is really attractive for first-time home buyers if you can do that. So by purchasing the property as an owner occupant, you qualify for better interest rates, also lower upfront costs compared to traditional investment loans. This means that you can control a valuable asset with less capital. You can leverage, which frees up your cash for renovations or future investments. What I found is that investors who succeed with this strategy, they stack the benefits. Okay, they combine several things like financing, local grants. Sometimes some of the local authorities, they have first-time home buyer programs, down payment assistance, low interest rate loans. Some of them have grants which you don't have to pay back. You can leverage seller credits if you can, or 203K rehab loan if necessary. So, I think it's worthwhile to consider the financing options. It's also important to understand, after you purchased it, there are responsibilities tied to your financing terms. If you're going in as an owner occupant, then, they're expecting you to live there, and usually for a minimum period of time, like a year. So the assumption is that you're going to live there for a year, which you should, because if you don't, then technically you could be violating it's mortgage fraud, I suppose, loan fraud, I suppose, and there are penalties against that. So you want to live there for at least a year, unless you have some real reasons that you can back up as to why you can't stay there for a year. So some of the action items associated with the financing: research FHA, VA, USDA, and Fannie Mae loans. Explore local grants or down payment assistance programs for your local authority wherever you are, and also understand the owner occupancy requirements before committing. Okay, good. So we're kind of moving right along. Let's have a look. So if you got some questions, again, put them in the chat box. I'll get to them in about 10 minutes. And if you want to book a one-on-one with me, you can go to my website, www.joeasamoah.com. That's www.joeasamoah.com. It doesn't matter. Any question, anything to do with real estate, put them in the chat box. Maybe a deal that you're working on, maybe a problem that you're facing, or maybe a challenging situation that you're working on, or maybe you want to share some of your accomplishments and some of the things that you're doing. Put them in the chat box. We'll get to it in about 10 minutes. Okay, let's move on to number 4, which is managing tenants while living in the same property. Managing tenants while living there. Oh, that's a double-edged sword. So the question is, can you be both a good landlord and a good neighbor? I mean, at the end of the day, it's your house. So you will be a landlord, and also you got to be a good neighbor to your tenants because you're living with them. So living with your tenants isn't always easy. There's some tenants I would never want to live with, but it can be manageable if you take the right approach. You got to set clear boundaries and expectations from day one. That's really important. I think successful house hackers treat the relationship professionally. Okay. I mean, it's a business. They're not your buddies. So be careful without, crossing the line. So be careful about renting to friends or even family members because, if something goes wrong, you could ruin a relationship. The key is clear communication and a well-written lease. I think that's really important. And you want to document everything if you can, from the shared spaces to quiet hours. Yeah, it's important to have quiet hours. You say that between this time and this time, keep your noise down low. I think again, agreement should be in writing to avoid misunderstanding. I know I have what I call house rules. So, a house rules document that we share with the tenants. I kind of go through them, the do's and don'ts, and because you will be living there and you may be sharing some space, so there's got to be some rules. Otherwise, it could be mayhem. And are they allowed to have guests? If so, what are there limitations to that? Can they have pets? If so, what's the limitations to that? There's a whole. Can they? It's important. I think my house rules is like 2 or 3 pages or something like that of house rules. And also you want to consider your rent collections. How are you going to collect that? Or maintenance requests? How are you going to handle that? So on the flip side, though, some house hackers admit to, you know, this is where it gets real tricky, especially if you rent to friends and family. Is you have a personal relationship with these folks, and now it's business, and so you can, those personal decisions can kind of conflict with business decisions. For instance, if the tenant's late, oh well, it's your brother or it's your friend, the best buddy. Okay, pay me when you can. And whereas if you didn't know the person, it would be more of a strictly a business transaction. So be careful about that. Over time, though, if you're not careful, it can lead to additional stress and some financial setbacks. So establishing consistency is really important. When your tenants know that you follow rules and you follow through on your policies, then I think they're going to respect you more, and the shared space becomes more peaceful and also profitable for you. So, what are some of the action items here? Always use a written lease agreement with all your tenants. Have everything documented. Don't have verbals if you can. Define shared versus private spaces and post expectations in common areas. House rules, for example, hold regular check-ins to address issues early, and so on. So we're going to number 5, which is navigating legal, zoning, and HOA challenges. Okay, there are some. It depends where you live, where the property is. There could be some legal, zoning, HOA, sort of local government issues that you're gonna have to deal with. So the question is, what legal landmines can derail your house hack, and how do you avoid them? So what are some of the things that can derail your house hack strategy, and hopefully how do you avoid them? So many well-intentioned investors like you and I have been blindsided by local regulations that restrict their house hack. Whether it's zoning laws, some places they don't allow you to rent basements. They just don't. It's a zoning issue. Or HOAs that restrict things like short-term rentals or the number of vehicles at a property. You need to do some legal due diligence first before you go down this path, because you could be setting yourself up for a rude awakening. You get a letter from somebody saying, I'm sorry, but you can't do whatever, fill in the blanks. So savvy investors make a point to call the city permitting office, verify unit legality, and understanding the local landlord tenant laws in the area. Okay, it's important, again, verify permitting issues, legality that you can do this, and also do your due diligence. So and also understand what the landlord tenant laws are in your area. Ignorance is not bliss. If you're going to get yourself in trouble, the judge will not sympathize with you if you say, well, Your Honor, I didn't know. Well, you should have known. The consequences of ignoring these rules can be serious, ranging from fines to forced evictions. But with good planning, most issues I think are avoidable. So you want to learn from others who face these challenges, so you don't have to. And just be aware of what you're entering into. Stay active in the real estate investor groups. Kind of keeps you ahead of what's going on. And speak to other like-minded investors who are doing what you're trying to do. So you can stay ahead of the curveball, and you can learn from what works and what doesn't work in your local area. So what are some of the action items? Research whether you need a rental license or a certificate of occupancy. You may want to consider joining a local landlord association for ongoing legal updates. And then finally, number 6, living through renovations. If you're going to have to do some upgrades to your house, you may be living there while you do the upgrades, or you may have a rental unit while you're doing some upgrades. So there are some considerations, and that's what I want to talk about next, is living through renovations. I suppose the question is, how do you make your home rent ready while living in it and keeping your sanity? Well, many house hackers, you may have to do some upgrades to your home before you rent it out. This often means things like living through a construction, dust, noise, interruptions, or all of it. The experience can be draining. Been there, done that. But smart planning can make a big difference. Successful investors, we plan for the renovations in the phases. We focus on critical areas like the kitchen and the bathroom first, because that's the most important for most people. And if you're going to do it yourself, you may save some money, but it's probably going to take you longer. If you hire a pro, it's going to cost you more, but it gets done quicker. So it depends on you. I personally prefer to just hire some people, get it done properly, professionally, faster, and that way you can turn this thing around and start getting some rental income as soon as possible. I think those who struggle usually underestimate the disruption renovations can be, and they fail to plan for that. If necessary, they fail to have alternate living arrangements during major upgrades. So consider creating a quiet zone in your home where you can just go to, especially if you're working from home, you can get work done. Communicate with your tenants if they're in the property while you're doing some renovations, and that way you can manage expectations about ongoing work, and also you can have a schedule which can hopefully will reduce tension and preserve goodwill. So that's about it let me just wrap it up for a conclusion. Turning a strategy into a lifestyle of wealth. That's what house hacking can do. It's a strategy which can sort of set you up for, I think, a lifestyle of wealth. So house hacking is more than a tactic. It's a transformative experience if it's done properly. That helps you it teaches you about landlording. It pays you money. That's where the paycheck comes in. Also positions you for long-term success, in my opinion. So for new investors, it offers a low barrier of entry because you can get owner occupant financing, low down payment assistance. There are quite a few grants available. For intermediate and seasoned investors, it's a strategy really that can unlock new cash flow streams and accelerate scaling. As I said before, it allowed me to scale because I was able to save money. I was able to drive down my housing costs, which if I didn't, I just wouldn't have any much money left over after I paid all my expenses. So it's not always easy. You know, there are some obstacles you're probably going to face. There could be some zoning issues, renovation chaos, you know, maybe awkward, you know, roommate conversations or whatever it is. But you know, nothing good is easy. But if you stay focused, adapt to the challenges, and learn from missteps of others that have kind of come before you, I think house hacking can be a move. You know, that kind of changes your financial trajectory. I think it really can be a game changer. So if you're serious about building wealth through real estate, and you're ready to stop letting your home be a financial drain, okay, then house hacking, I think, it's worthy of your attention. It's definitely worthy of your consideration. So whether you're house hacking to live for free, which is what I did, or build equity and sharpen your investor skill sets, really this strategy is a time-tested method. It's worked. It's been going on for generations upon generations. It really can be a vehicle to fast track your real estate journey. So I think in closing, you know, it's really time to turn your house into a paycheck. Yeah, you're gonna have to share some space with other people, but you know, it's a short term, you know, struggle, or a short term, you know, situation for a long term gain. And I definitely think it's worthy of further consideration. So with that said and done, that's it for my you know, talk today. Let's get down to, if you got some questions, please put it in the chat box. I'll get to you right now. Anything to do with real estate, put them in there. And if you want to shoot an email, if you want to communicate with me by email, shoot me an email at joe@joeasamoah.com, joe@joeasamoah.com. And if you want to book a one-on-one with me, you can go to my website, www.joeasamoah.com, www.joeasamoah.com. If you're in the Washington, D.C. area, I've been invited to be a guest speaker at the BPG real estate meetup, which is going to be next Wednesday. So next Wednesday is going to be recorded. So if you're in Arlington, I think we're going to send a couple of announcements out. Arlington, Virginia. Was it Alexandria, Virginia? I think, I forgot now. Anyway, it's in Virginia, Northern Virginia. If you're in the DC area, I'll be speaking next Wednesday at the BPG conference. It's not conference, meetup. I'm going to talk about what I do, which is to buy and hold using the Section 8 as a strategy to build wealth. So I'll be talking about that. So if you're in the area, you want to meet me, you know, see me in action, and maybe have a conversation, please come on down. I think it starts at 6:15. So next week's session is going to be recorded. It won't be live next week, Wealth Wednesday. So if you're in the DC area, feel free to join me. If you're on my mailing list, you'll probably see an announcement sometime next few days. Come on down if you're in the Washington, D.C. area. I'd love to see you. And kudos also to Johnny. Johnny's just got a contract on his house, which I'm going to be helping him with. It's a 2-bedroom, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. We're going to turn into a 6-bedroom, probably a 4-bathroom home in the Washington, D.C. Looking forward to that one. It's going to be a nice project. And it's going to be a 6-bedroom, so he's going to get 6-bedroom rents. So he will be able to have equity and also have cash flow on day one. And also kudos to Corliss and Fitz. We are working with them this week we've pretty much got a tenant now lined up for their property in Washington, D.C. Kudos to that. We had a lot of applications, and we selected a family for their unit. And so we're good. Okay, let's go down to questions and see what we got here. Okay, Dow 2. Hey, man. Greetings from Phoenix. Welcome. Hope all is well in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm sure it's hot there. And so again, the Dow 2 is one of the regulars, is always on. So hope you're doing well. Maybe one day we'll get a chance to meet Dow 2. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If not, you may want to correct me. I always call you Dow 2, but I could be wrong. Okay, Nesta. When a Section 8 voucher holder comes to view your property, should they bring their packet? How does it look, and do I hold on to it when they leave? Okay, so the scenario is that he's got a property for rent, I'm assuming, Nesta, and he's put it out there and people come to look at it. So do they need to bring their voucher and the packet that they get from the housing authority to the viewing. Uh, well, most of the people at this point, they know what size voucher they have, whether it's a 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, 5 bedroom, 6 bedroom, etc. So they should be able to tell you what size voucher they have without you physically having to see it. This is when you're showing the house. And if they want to bring it, fine. If they don't want to bring it, they should tell you what size voucher they have. And hopefully they're being truthful about it. Obviously, if they bring the voucher, you can confirm that. In terms of the entire packet, it's really not necessary at this point when you're just showing the house. The important thing to know is what size voucher do they have? When are they looking to move? And there's also the housing authority. They provide some other documents about their 30%, 40% income contribution, and so on. So look, 1 second. So I don't think they need to bring the entire packet, Nesta. They just need to bring their voucher if they have it, and or they can just tell you you'll need the voucher, and they're going to need to sign some documents once you've selected them, because you have what we call an RFTA, a request for tenancy approval packet, that you have to submit to the housing authority. And usually within that packet, you have to include a copy of their voucher. And there's also some forms which they have to fill out. So you may not need it right now, but you will need it later on if you decide to move ahead with that tenant. How does it look if I hold it when they leave? I don't suggest that you hold on to anything of theirs, because you're giving us a false sense. You know, they may feel that you've already selected them, but you haven't, because you haven't done any screening. So they come see your house. They like it, for example. I hope that you're going to ask them to fill an application where they're going to give you some information about themselves, who they are, where they live, who's their landlord, their employment, their income, and household composition, all that kind of stuff. That's on the application form. I have an 8-page application which you can purchase online. But so they're going to fill the application, and then you're going to do some screening. And the more thorough the screening, the better, I think. And at some point, you're going to make a decision as to who you're going to rent to. If you take their stuff, their packet, before you make a decision, then they may perceive that you're selecting them, or you're going to have to return it to them if you don't select them. So rather than so just to avoid all that, I don't take anything from anybody. You may take a photograph if you want to, or their voucher, but I don't, not initially, but I will later on once I decide to select them. Okay, let's have a look. Let's keep going. I have a lady who has a voucher for a 2-bedroom. Okay, my rental is a 3-bedroom. Will Section 8 still give me the 3-bedroom rental price if I select her? That's a good question. I'm going to give you obviously a generic answer. It depends. What it depends on is the rent that you're charging. Let's say, for argument's sake, a 2-bedroom rent that the housing authority is paying, the max they'll pay is $2,000, and the max they'll pay for a 3-bedroom is $3,000. Just keep it simple. So your question, Nestor, is: can you charge $3,000, which is the 3-bedroom rent price, and will the housing authority approve this 2-bedroom voucher holder to live there? I think that's just your question. It's going to depend on several things. Whether it's going to depend on whether they have a federal voucher or a local voucher. That's number one. It's going to depend on what they call the payment standard for the housing authority for that location. What's the maximum rent that they'll pay for a for a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, and also it's going to depend on the utilities. Who's paying utilities? So all that stuff goes in to determine whether they'll allow this person to move into your home. That's how it works. So it's going to kind of depend. But what you don't want to do is to rent to a 2-bedroom voucher holder, and then you find out later on that you can't get the rent that you want. So you're always safer if you have a 3-bedroom property to rent to a 3-bedroom voucher holder. Then you know you'll get the rent that you want. If you rent to a 2-bedroom voucher, you may get it if the rent is within the 2-bedroom range. But if it's outside the 2-bedroom range, they just won't approve it, or they're going to tell the tenant to go find something else which is more affordable. Or they may ask you to reduce your asking price for the rent. So it's kind of on a case-by-case scenario, Nestor. But generally, to be safe, you may want to if you got a 3-bedroom, you want to go with a 3-bedroom tenant. Otherwise, you can call the housing authority wherever you are, and you can run that scenario by somebody over there, and they'll tell you if they're going to approve this person moving into your property. Good question. Ty, I'm in a house hacking situation where I have my own room and bath, okay, but we still share the kitchen and common areas, okay? So it feels like we're always in each other's way. We have to compromise often. Okay, the plot thickens. So I much prefer a self-contained unit with own kitchenette and a living area so everybody has their own privacy. Yes, I agree. I think that can really only be achieved with the basement level like you described. Yes, yes, if you got a single family house, if you don't want to share anything with these folks, then you probably need to have their own kitchen, and they probably need to have their own bathrooms. So if you have common areas which is shared, especially like the TV room, the living room, or whatever it is, then you're going to be sharing common space, and then it becomes a matter of yeah. So then it's going to depend on several things like house rules. And, are they the kind of people who are going to wash up after them or leave plates in the sink? Are there people who are going to smoke or don't smoke or what? I mean, you're going to have some house rules. But people want their privacy, just like what you said, Ty. And I know that's what I did. But I mean, at that time, I had a basement which was separate, but I also rented 2 rooms upstairs. I lived in one of them. So it really didn't bother me. But I'm an easygoing guy. But to somebody else, it could be a big deal to share space with somebody else. But as long as you have house rules, as long as you communicate the do's and don'ts, and as long as you have a written agreement that clearly spells out the rent, the terms, the conditions, and so forth, and you screen well, i.e., when you are showing the place, you tell people what's expected of them and what they can expect from you, then you may be able to do okay. But looking back now, I think that private space is always better. That way you can live your life and they can live their life, and there's less interactions, and so on. But yeah, I think you get the gist of it. This is from Kevin. How do you approach Section 8 investing now with all the proposed changes? What is your game plan? Okay, good question. I think I covered that a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, I mean, who knows what's going on with dodgy DOGE, with the Trump administration. But one thing I do know is that there will be some cuts to HUD. That's pretty much assured. HUD's going to get their budget cut, which means that the amount of money that's going to the Housing Choice Voucher Program, the Section 8, is probably going to get cut. And so what are the implications of that? I think that's what you are talking about. I think what's going to happen is several things. One is they're going to cut staff at the housing authorities. So if you don't have relationships at the housing authority, you may want to start doing that, because I mean, it may be bad already trying to get people to answer your calls or return your emails. If you think it's bad now, can you imagine the same amount of work with fewer people, and how responsive they're going to be then? So if you don't have relationships with key people, you could be in an eternal black hole where your calls and your emails will never get answered. If you have relationships, maybe you can contact superiors and say, "Hey, can you help me out here?" And they'll help you out by seeing what they can do. So yeah, relationships, I think, with the housing authority is really important. So you may want to start developing those if you can. They're probably not going to allow rent increases. So if you want a rent increase, you better want to do it now, before the fiscal year starts on October the 1st. So I would say you may want to consider requesting a rent increase now before October the 1st, otherwise you may not get one. You may want to consider, I think they're going to be looking to cut people off the program. So it means that if you don't have a voucher, you're probably not going to get one. And if you do have a voucher, I would think that they'll make it easier for you to lose it. That's for the tenant and for the landlord. So they'll be tightening up the policies, and and I think your relationship with your tenants becomes really, really important to navigate these changes. I think the best insurance is to make sure you have tenants who are happy, who are going to stay and take care of your property. That's probably the best insurance. So you may want to start investing in that, the relationship with your tenants, and so on. So these are some of nobody knows what's going to happen. But my game plan is I'm trying to be proactive. Some of the things I shared with you is what I'm doing now. And it's going to be interesting, turbulent water. Let's just put it that way. But it's okay. It is what it is. I've been through this before. Maybe not as deep as this, but I've been through several administration changes. But at the end of the day, I think anyway, the economics is cheaper. It's cheaper to provide or to give you rent than it is to have a family of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 homeless. That's just the bottom line. So there are social costs, there are financial costs with having women and children on the streets, and it's far cheaper to avoid that by paying you rent than to have these families evicted and on the streets. That's in my opinion. But who knows? We're in strange times. I don't think it's good public policy to have people evicted and thrown on the street. But it's not for me to say. Okay, Katie. Hey, Katie. Hi, Katie. What sort of restrictions or limitations do you have for guest visitors of your tenants? Well, first of all, when they apply, I ask them to list all the occupants of the property and every single person, and I double ask, triple ask, is there anybody else that's going to be living here? And if they say no, then those are the only names that's going to be on the lease. Anybody who stays more than 14 days or less than 14 days is considered a guest. So a guest is anyone who occupies the property for less than 14 days. If they stay longer than that, they're not guests. If they're not on the lease, then it's a lease violation. Okay, so I try to document who's going to be staying there up front. In my lease, my 20-page lease, it clearly states only those people who are on the application or on the lease are allowed to occupy the place. And if they stay 14 days or more, then they are no longer guests. Okay, and therefore it's a violation of the lease, which, depending on your jurisdiction, it can then give you the right to evict. So that's how I handle guests and visitors for my property. Again, I'm not if the tenants pay their rent on time, pleasant to deal with, and they do everything above board and taking care of the home and paying their rent, if they're doing all that, then do I want to evict them if they bring in their sister or something like that? Nah, maybe not. So you're gonna have to make a judgment call as to whether it's good business just to kind of, I won't say turn a blind eye, but just sort of don't rock the boat. Because if you're going to have a vacancy because you evict them, it's going to cost you 2, 3, 4 months lost income. So it can be expensive. So you kind of have to pick your battles. That's what I've learned as a landlord. is you pick your battle. Sometimes you let it go, and sometimes you put a line in the sand. It just depends on the situation and your circumstances. Okay, good questions. Congrats, Johnny. Yes. Hey, Marlon. Hope you're doing well. And hope you're doing well. I think you're in the Baltimore area, I think. So good evening. Kudos to Johnny and on his property here in Washington, D.C. So he's on a roll. And hopefully you're on a roll, Marlon. And hopefully if you're not, then you need to get on a roll because we've been talking for a long time. I know you want to get financial independence. So hopefully you're on that track. If not, you may want to give me a call and we can get you back on track again. Ty, ha ha ha. I think men might be more easygoing than female housemates. Well, I don't want to step on that minefield, but I'm an easygoing guy. So, I don't, certain things it doesn't bother me. I know women sometimes can be a bit more particular. Obviously, I understand why. But I just wanted to, yeah, anyway, that's what do you think, Ty? Are women more particular? I think they are as to who they want to live with and also the rules of engagement. And some people don't want to be in a space with other people from different sexes. So I think when I had it, I had male and female in my place, if I recall. No, we didn't have any problems. It's one big happy family, as they say. But it's all good. Okay. I'm still okay, Marlon. Okay, I'm still on track. One property time. Good for you. Oh yes, women are more particular. Yes, we got a lot more going on. Yeah. Oh boy, so women have got a lot going on. Huh? Got a lot more issues to deal with. I think so. I know okay, this is what happened with me. I was living in one of the bedrooms and rented the 2 bedrooms upstairs. So it's 3 upstairs altogether. And I was single. It was fine with me. I was rolling, saving a lot of money. When we got married, my wife, she then moved into the house, and the next call of duty was to get rid of all my tenants. So she didn't want to live with these strangers. So I don't know. It's a women thing. It's a woman thing. But yeah. So that was the end of the house hack for the 2 bedrooms. Now I still rented the basement because that was private space. So there was no interactions. But she just wasn't gung ho about sharing space with other people. So maybe it's a woman thing. But that's what happened to me. I was doing house hacking for the basement unit, also for my bedrooms upstairs. I lived in one, rented 2 out. And when we got married, then I still kept my house hack in the basement, but the other 2 upstairs, that disappeared because my wife didn't want to share space with strangers, as she calls it. Anyway, okay, I think we're good. So it's now at 7:57, and as usual, let's have a look. What does Ty have to say? I don't blame your wife. I wouldn't want to live with all those folks as well. They're good guys, huh? I say maybe it's a woman thing. It didn't bother me at all, and so on. But anyway, I'll leave that one alone because I don't want to get beat up by other people. So as usual, if you want to shoot me an email, shoot me an email at joe@joeasamoah.com, and I'll see if I can respond to you. And if you want to book a one-on-one with me, any issues, any questions, if you want to do a deep dive, go to my website, joe@joeasamoah.com, joe@joeasamoah.com. It is 8 o'clock. I am going to Ghana August the 3rd. Yes, I booked my ticket today. So I'll be going to Ghana for a couple of weeks. One of the family members is getting married, and so I'll be making my trip to Ghana. Yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a nice trip, and just booked the ticket today, and off to go. And so that'll be 4th overseas trip of the year. I've got 2 more to go. I think I'm going to go Dominica, and I think I may go to South America to make my 6 overseas trips, or maybe even go on a cruise. Who knows? But yeah, so hopefully, you know, not to brag or anything, but, you know, real estate can be a real great vehicle to financial independence if you do it right. It's not easy, but it can work if you put the pieces together. And I started off all with house hacking, and that's why, you know, the strategy I shared with you today, it really can make a big difference. And keep your expenses low, put the right systems in place, get the right tenants, screen tenants, manage the relationships, and it's definitely something that works. I'm a testament of that. And again, I'm not bragging or anything, because that's not necessary. It's just that it can work. It can't work if you put the wrong things in place. It can be a disaster. But if you do it right, especially the Section 8 program, it's really good. Talked to one of my tenants today. 21 years she's been with me. Can you believe that? 21 years. My longest is 28 years. And this stuff works, sir, ma'am, and so on. Anyway, enough of that. I will see you next Wednesday. Well, no, next Wednesday. If you're in Virginia area, Northern Virginia, or in the DC area, you can see me. I'll be at the BPA. I'll be a guest speaker next week. So this next Wednesday will be a recorded Wealth Wednesday. It won't be live. And I think I'm going to go to Ghana after that. So no, I don't know. Anyway, hopefully I'll speak to you guys shortly. And otherwise, maybe I'll do a Wealth Wednesday from Ghana. And they are 4 hours ahead of us. And so on. Okay, guys, have yourself a wonderful rest of the evening. I'll speak to you soon. Okay, take care. Bye for now.